yes.
Thanks so much for joining the Human Rights Campaign's Community Conversations program. This is the place where we sit down with people from all across the community to talk about the work that they're doing to drive positive change in the world today. My name is Will Goldstein-Mahon. I use he, him, his pronouns. I'm one of the HRC's Board of Governors based in New England, and I am over the top excited to welcome our guest today, Judith Kasen-Windsor. Before I do that, though, I'd like to take a step back and tell you a little bit about her wife, Edith Windsor, if you're not already familiar with her story and her bio. So here goes. And I printed it out because I want to make sure, Judith, I get this right. So
Yes.
Edith Windsor was born in 1929 in Philadelphia. She graduated from Temple in 1950, and she received a master's in mathematics from NYU in 1957. She spent 2 decades working with mainframe computers, where she ultimately attained the highest level technical position in IBM of Senior Systems Manager. She won an IBM PhD scholarship, and in 1987, she was honored by the National Computing Conference as a pioneer in operating systems. Personally, she spent 4 decades with her partner, Thea Spire, who is a clinical psychologist. They were legally married in Canada in 2007, and after Thea's death in 2009, Edie became the executor and the sole beneficiary of Thea's estate, and she was required to pay federal taxes of $300,000 plus on her inheritance. Had federal law recognized the validity of Edie and Thea's marriage, Edie would have qualified for an unlimited spousal deduction and would have paid 0 federal estate taxes. Edie sought to claim the federal estate tax exemption for surviving spouses, but she was barred from doing so because of Section 3 of DOMA, which provided that the term, quote, spouse only applied to marriages between a man and a woman. Edie didn't take that.
One man and one woman.
One man and one woman. She didn't take that lightly. She filed a lawsuit against the federal government, and she is most widely known for her landmark Supreme Court case that followed, which resulted in same-sex married couples being granted full recognition in the United States for the first time. Today, the case of U.S. versus Windsor is arguably one of the most influential legal precedents in the struggle for LGBTQ plus marriage equality. In 2016, Edie married Judith Kasen, a financial advisor in New York City, and they've remained together until Edie's passing. In 2019, Edie's memoir, A Wild and Precious Life, was published, and it was called by Harper's Bazaar a must-read for any young queers who want to know where our community came from. It is one of my favorite books. I've got it here. It is well worn. I've read it multiple times. And in Edie's eulogy, Hillary Clinton said that Edie pushed us all to be better, pushed us to stand taller, and pushed us to dream bigger. She is, in every sense of the word, a hero. Joining us today is Judith Kasen-Windsor, who is a banking executive, first vice president of financial investments and portfolio manager in the Private Client Group. She's also an LGBTQ plus activist and philanthropist. She and Edie met while participating in their mutual passion for LGBTQ plus activism. They married September 26, 2016 at New York City Hall. It was a perfect culmination for Edie to enjoy the legal rights and dignity that she fought so hard to achieve. Yeah. Since Edie's passing, Judith continues to be a champion for LGBTQ plus causes, supporting the Edith Windsor Coding Scholarship, the Edith Windsor Coffee Shop, the Edith Windsor Heart Project, which we're going to talk about in a minute, the Edith Windsor Street Sign in Philadelphia and New York, the Edith Windsor Scholarships at Temple and NYU, and in her own right, Judith Kasen-Windsor has received the Women of Distinction Award, the Feminist Power Award, the World Pride Ambassador Award, and the Community Service and Leader Impact Award. Judith, I am out of breath. Thank you for joining Human Rights Campaign today.
People ask me if I sleep, and I'm like, nah. When I can.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for joining the HRC community. We are thrilled to have you here.
Before
we get into things, I will share with folks on the line that anybody can ask you a question. We have a Q&A function on Zoom at the bottom. So if there's a question that comes to mind, go ahead and drop that in the Q&A function. We'll have time at the end to get to those. But first, I wanted to ask you, Judith, so 2013 was the year that Edie, who, by the way, over your left shoulder, we have cardboard Edie joining us for our conversation. She's here.
Yeah.
It's been 10 years. It has been 10 years since
Huh?
that landmark case where your wife, Edith Windsor, sued the United States and won.
Mhm.
What was that like? Where were you when all of that happened?
Other than lusting after Edie, because, once she sort of filed the case in, say, 2010, 2011, as popular as she was throughout this community, and she was, and so was Thea, which I met both of them in 2007, 2006, right after they got married. They were always at the Hamptons tea dance. Like, I knew Thea also. Edie was she just like went into stratosphere. Just everybody, it was just such a big deal that, that she would have the guts when, Lambda Legal and HRC and I'm not criticizing HRC or Lambda Legal or anybody else, or, there's, I don't even want to say Evan Wolfson's name, but they were like, don't do this. Do not file this case. It's too early. It's not the right time for the movement. They're like, don't do it. Don't do it. You'll ruin it for everybody. And she didn't take that advice and was not of popular opinion. And she just moved forward and went for it.
Yeah. And
because she couldn't wrap her head around the injustice.
Yeah. And I mean, it was only 10 years ago, but
yeah,
there was a time when that was unfathomable, right? That same-sex marriage would be legal across the country. So
yeah,
people were skeptical and backtrack 10, 20, 30 years ago, people couldn't wrap their mind around what we have today.
No, you have to then think, Prop 8 in California, which passed. And, I think it was really the way it was worded. People were confused whether you were supposed to vote yes or vote no, but irrelevant. Look how that passed in California and then got overturned. Edie's case was in the morning and the Prop 8 California case was late in the afternoon. And sort of after the Edie case and sort of the language that Judge Kennedy and Ruth Bader Ginsburg and everybody used, they kind of knew Prop 8 was going to get overturned too, because this is what, Edie did. Just the Windsor case alone, it spanned so far and wide. It took down Don't Ask, Don't Tell. It took down, illegal adoptions, of same-sex couples. It just, the vast amount of things that it did across the board made a big difference. Yes, being that, I was kind of raised in the 80s and the 90s, whatever, the difference between how gay people are treated now and how they were treated, say, 80s, 90s, even 2000s. Like, it baffles me that, kids are still kicked out of their homes because they're gay and whatever, because it has changed so much in this, just in the entire nation, world, whatever. I hear from people from Italy. I hear from people from Argentina. People reach out to me all the time from all over the place, and talk about the Windsor case.
Yeah. And certainly we've made so much progress. I know Edie and Thea would leave New York to go to the Hamptons because it was safer to be yourself out in the Hamptons and without the risk of people seeing her with another woman.
Even being with Edie, we would just, walk down the street. We were walking to Bed Bath & Beyond one day, and I don't even know why. I wasn't even thinking about it, but I would grab her hand and I was holding her hand. And that's sort of, we got to the intersection of like 6th Avenue and 14th, which is, a big intersection. Yeah. She just kind of slowly just dropped my hand and would not hold my, so that fear, stuck with her whole life.
Yeah.
Like, she was not comfortable holding my hand and in the middle of New York City in 2016, 2015, that kind of stuck with her whole life because they had to really, really be so, so careful. And it states in the book, she, like me, I'm friends with a lot of gay men. She was also, which was an anomaly at that time, she was friends with a lot of gay men. And she talks about it in the book, how she went out with them often. So if the place did get raided, she could at least save one of them.
Right.
Which is, you can't even think about these things, but there's a lot of this kind of going on today. I think it's such a small percentage. I think it's less than 20%. When Edie did this case, I think maybe 20% of the population agreed with same-sex marriage. Now it's like at 73.
Right.
Used to watch it all the time. Like it was like 58, 51, 61. Like she used to watch the numbers all the time. Now it's over 70. I think it's 71, 73, right around in there, where she would be thrilled. Nobody really cares. So it's just this little, I think a very small percentage of this population that just has difficulty with people who are different.
Yeah.
And that applies across the board.
Yeah.
That's the one thing you didn't read in my bio. And I told you this before we started. Speechwriter is not on my bio. I helped Edie write and rewrite. And I spent almost a year. She really wrote that book. But I had to go through and edit the whole thing. So that last year she wrote it. I then spent almost a year editing and rewriting and writing and rewriting and cleaning the whole thing up so we could get it published, because they wanted to move forward with it. And so I spent a lot of time on that's what I used to stay up all night and paragraph by paragraph. But in my speech writing, and this is something that I've always said, and she always said it, the LGBTQ community, I've always been a proud member of, and I always will be a proud member of, because we are the only marginalized community that includes everyone. Everyone. Every race, every religion, every color, every creed, every national origin, every sex, every sexual orientation. And we understand, like, I don't isolate color or creed or national, I don't, because that's who our community is. We include
everyone.
We are the community that gets it.
Yeah. I want to ask you, you mentioned Prop 8 a minute ago. And I know, I've told you this story before, but I lived in California in 2008 during the time of Prop 8. I was engaged to be married. One of the bluest of the blue states, in a year where we all kind of knew we were going to elect our first Black president. I was engaged to be married, had a wedding planned, and then Prop 8 couldn't get married. And so I live in New England now, and I actually first came, I had to, with my fiance at the time, we had to fly from California to Boston to get married. And it was so challenging to go back home and go, wow, 54% of the people in the grocery store, in the drugstore, in my community, just looking around and go, wow, 54% of you don't view us as equal. And so that was 2008. Fast forward to all the work Edie did to 2023, full circle moment I had earlier this summer because of a project that you put together, the Edith Windsor Heart Project in Southampton. Would you mind talking about that a little bit for folks?
That is one thing that I've really, really worked hard on. And Edie and I had this conversation, when I said to her, there will be things named after you. And she was like, I don't care. I'll be dead. It won't make any difference to me. And I'm like, what's going to happen? And I'm going to spearhead this. And I think in her mind, she knew I was going to. And I did. And reason why I worked so hard, because I always say, to me, it's an overworked, underpaid, thankless job, but it's a labor of love for me. I think it is so important to have Edie's name out there, just like I think it's important to have Larry Kramer's name out there, or Terrence McNally's name out there, or Harvey Milk's name out there. I mean, for Harvey Milk to have an airport and a ship named after him, it matters.
Yes.
So, putting your name, and especially for, not to isolate, but, especially for a woman to have things named after her and have her name somewhere. And it was really sweet to sort of people would take these random pictures of people getting married on that heart in Southampton, same-sex couples, straight couple, everybody getting married on this, because, that's the thing about Edie and Thea. It's about love. That's all. That's it. It's just about love, and that's it. So the town supervisor of Southampton, I was thinking about doing a street sign or some sort of statue or something. And he came up with, I think we're still going to do in Southampton. I think there's going to be a street or something named after her. But we started this heart project as we had this space in front of Southampton Town Hall. So we built this heart, and it's made of these bricks, and it's a brick, and it's heavy. They were $1,000, and 100% of the proceeds went to the Edith Windsor Healthcare Center, which is where Stony Brook Southampton Hospital came to me after she passed away, because there was the David Rogers Center for HIV and AIDS. And they said, we would like to rename this after Edie. And I said, well, if you're going to rename it after Edith Windsor, then it has to be more inclusive. It has to expand from HIV and AIDS. It has to expand to mental health services and nutritional services and, primary care and a conduit into the hospital system, regardless of the ability to pay. And, I'm going through this, my got out my soapbox and then put it back away, but it happened. And that's what we did. And we are growing. We just hired a new case manager. I just happened to go by there the other day and I had to drop off a t-shirt for somebody and 2,500 pens at the Edith Windsor Center with the phone number on there. And we just got a new case manager. I mean, we're just doing amazing, amazing things. And I have about 3 different things that I do throughout the summer to help raise money for the Edith Windsor Center.
I love that. And it is, check it out online. Actually, my husband and I purchased a heart. We made the trip out to Southampton, and what a full circle moment. 15 years is not a long time to go from you can't get married, you have to travel 2,700 miles to get married, to now us, you, so many other folks, our pavers literally serve as the foundation for other people's marriages. So it was just this beautiful full circle moment, money to a good cause. And so I wanted to look you in the eye and thank you for the time and energy and hard work you've put into that. It was really meaningful for me.
Yeah. We're really doing great work. Last summer, the Edith Windsor Center was the first location in Long Island to get monkeypox shots. So all these people coming out from New York or Fire Island or whatever, and then Northwell finally got theirs, but we were the first. And so, that's what we're sort of known as out in Long Island, because, Long Island's pretty red. And that's the only community healthcare center. So, we're doing all those types of things. And it's really just growing, just constantly growing.
I love that. And so I've got to ask you, because you showed me before our Zoom call started. So you are putting together some content. There are boxes and artifacts and all sorts of stuff in the room you're in right now. You are putting together. Let's take a look here.
There we go.
So, and that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Infamous, if you've read the book, there's the infamous harpsichord. This right here, I was just showing you this. This was the first, if you can imagine, it's 40 pounds. This is the IBM luggable. And this was the first computer delivered to an individual in the city of New York. And I'm donating this to the New York Historical Society. And then there's these bankers boxes. And if you look over there, they're stacked all the way in my dining room.
As part of those artifacts, we talked about Edie being part of IBM, achieving the highest level. Is it also true that she met Bill Gates and Microsoft and had a hand in developing the first computer at IBM?
Well, yeah, she was developing those IBMs that literally took up the size of a whole room. And it used to be over at NYU, and it took up from Green Street to Mercer Street to Waver, it took up that city block. And they could only use it at night. So we used to work from 12 o'clock at night till 8 o'clock in the morning. And that's when they said, give Edith Windsor a roll of toilet paper and she can solve anything. There was all this coding and, this COBOL and all the, really way, way back before anybody knew anything about computers. There's a great magazine that she's in where the article was are computers going to be in every house? And this was from 1985 or something. So, she was really a groundbreaker. And that's another thing that I've done. The boxes that I just showed you are for the New York Historical Society and the Obama Foundation Library. They're sort of all together because the Obama Foundation Library is going to take a while. So we want to get this stuff into a temperature controlled environment. And I showed you the hat that she wore in her parade, that pink rimmed hat, and that's in a hat box over there. It was very important to me, and I know the LGBTQ National Museum is going to be at the New York Historical Society because they're building a building down on 77th Street, and but it's only going to be one floor, and so that was something that we talked about. I didn't want to pigeonhole her into LGBTQ because she was so much more than that, and I always say that she was LGBTQ. Civil rights icon. She was a woman. She was Jewish. She was American, and she was a technology pioneer. Yeah. So, she was so broad in everything that she did that she's been in she was in an upstanders exhibit. The largest Holocaust museum in the United States is in Chicago. They did this upstanders exhibit, and there she was. So I didn't want to pigeonhole her into just LGBTQ. Although
Right.
I'm extremely proud of what
Yeah.
she did for our community. And actually, one of my closest friends from college just texted me today because her son was so excited last year. So it was sort of bittersweet. Last year, there's about 15 cases like Brown versus the Board of Ed and McCulloch versus Maryland. There's about 15 different civil rights cases that AP students in high school study.
Mhm.
And when they overturned Roe came off of that list and Windsor went on that list. So now high school students in AP classes are studying Windsor. And then we used to bump into NYU students all the time because we live right by NYU. Windsor is always studied in their first year civil rights law class.
How incredible is that?
So like random people would just like fall on their knees and cry at Edie's feet. She'd be like, "Get up!" but like it was crazy the impact that she had on so many people.
Totally. And
yeah,
our time is flying by. But I
yes.
One question for you. You mentioned you're also doing work with the Stonewall Library.
Yes.
Can you share a little bit about that? I know you showed me some books you've got next. Also,
you know. Edie and Thea both were voracious readers, and we took Stonewall Museum that they're building next to Stonewall, that Stonewall National Museum, and I've been very involved with that. I was a Stonewall rebel, and I'm close with the woman who does it, and we've done a bunch of walkthroughs, and I helped get Gillibrand there. I mean, it's all. And one of the things that I did talk about with Diana Rodriguez, who's running that museum, is that Edie had. We have all of these books that, anything she could get her hands on, she had to go sneak over to a bookstore, buy it, and sneak back home with it. But there's hundreds of books, and most of them are out of print. And I was showing you like this book.
Yeah.
This book is from 1973. And then I have this book. These paperbacks are $1.25. I mean, it's crazy. So they came and they picked up a bunch of books, and it's so the Parsons School, which is right over here on Fifth Avenue, Parsons School and the Stonewall National Museum. We're going to be building the library, or start to build the library for the Stonewall Museum. And the foundation of it will be these 500-600 books or whatever that we have of Edie's that she's had for decades. I mean, we have books in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s. I mean, these happen to be from the 70s, but these things you can't get your hands on. They're sort of out of print, they're out of whatever. And that's going to be the foundation of the library.
How incredible. And it would be interesting to crack one of those open. I think I saw one was titled The Rights of Gay People.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting to see how that's changed since 1973 to now.
Yeah. I have, it's just,
wow. Okay.
Yeah. They're yellowed and they're what, and of course, as we were talking about before, look, it's all underlined.
Yep.
So
she
read all this stuff and she underlined. So you know what? When I get off this, I'm gonna see what she underlined. I will read that.
There's
and that's like in every book that we have here, and there's thousands of books here. And she was always underlining, or she had, like I told you about, the little tabs that she did. This is like an old, probably original COBOL book. She probably bought it at the NYU bookstore.
There's so much that you're doing, so many projects that you've got your hands in to keep Edie's legacy going, and then to continue.
It's our legacy.
Yeah, your collective, and Thea too, the full legacy. Yes. There's so much that you're doing. So one, thank you for everything that you're doing. Yeah. How can people stay up to date with all of this? Where is there a website?
There's edithwindsor.org.
Okay.
And you can show them your shirt.
Well, so if you haven't noticed, my don't post
shirt. Yep, it's a fantastic shirt. That is one of Edie's famous quotes, is "Don't postpone joy." So if you go to edithwindsor.org, you can see where she has the visitor center at Hedrick Martin. There's the Thea Spire Center at Callan Lord. There's the coding scholarship at Lesbian Sioux Tech. There's the scholarship at NYU and Temple, and the coffee shop at the center, and the Edie Windsor Sage Center. I mean, it's all over the place. And plus, we do other things. We do the Heart Project. We're doing a thing, I think November 14th. Somebody got a bulk of tickets for Come to My Window, the Melissa Etheridge Broadway show. So we're going to be doing that. And, X amount of dollars will go back to the Edie Windsor Foundation. And I don't keep a penny. I don't do anything. It's not my foundation. It's not my thing. And, I give all the money back. Like I just gave $10,000 to Lesbian Sioux Tech because it's their 10-year anniversary. And I gave, $10,000 to Hedrick Martin. So whatever money we raise, I give back to the community because it's that important.
Yeah. Thank you, Judith. And so
Yes.
edwindsor.org, y'all check it out. There's many projects. And when you check it out, get involved.
Yeah.
Look,
Please
roll up your
get
sleeve,
involved.
get involved. There's
Yeah.
there's a lot of progress that's been made, but there's also a lot of work to do.
Mhm. As I tell
God,
her, I come out every single day.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
talk to young people and they're like, is it hard to come out? I'm like, I do it every day. I tell the woman at the grocery store, like, I just come out every day, in some way, shape, or form. Like it's not my lifestyle. It's not whatever. It's just who I am.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of who I am.
Yeah. And
I'm proud of
I'm
who
so
you are.
thankful.
And I'm proud of who we are.
Yeah. Our
as a community.
We're a great community.
We are.
And
we include everybody.
Yes. And thank you for joining our community today. We're so thankful for you, for the work that you've done. Thank you for your time. And if you didn't catch it already, edwindsor.org, check it out, get involved. Judith Kasen-Windsor, thank you so much for joining us.